They were grabbing my crotch the whole time and trying to pull out my junk. Males who got sexually harassed, what's your story? I was at a party and later in the evening, the hostess and her friend pulled me to the floor and tried to unzip my pants to measure my penis. One of them had a ruler. It was actually a struggle to break away from them. They thought it was funny, I did not. This was back in the late 80s. A different time. I never gave a thought of being sexually harassed or assaulted, but I did feel kind of humiliated and uncomfortable after. They were part of my circle of friends. I was pretty young and they were a bit older. It was a struggle to break away without hurting them. I was concerned about being seen as the aggressor. Both of their husbands were there, but I don't think they knew this went down. There were a lot of people around, but it was kind of dark in the house by this time. It's been over 30 years and I haven't seen them in a long time, but I still remember their names. I was at a bar that was my regular watering hole, and I was bent over the counter talking to the bartender. It was loud as hell and we needed to hear each other. I have hair halfway down my back, and was bent over with my shoulders rounded and half hidden under my hair. Some nut decided to grope me, thinking I was a woman. He grabbed my butt and rammed his fingers into my taint, right where one would expect to find a vagina. He didn't. I was not amused, but he nearly shat himself when the woman he groped turned around and was a 6 feet 3 inches very angry man. I let the bouncer know, and he kept an eye on him and ended up throwing him out later. I was like 5, 6 years old and some relatives had visited us. With those relatives was one of my aunts that was like 40 years old. Long story short, she asked me if my penis has grown, and I didn't say anything, so she put her hand in my pants and touched it. I don't remember my reaction then, but I remember everyone laughing for some reason. Had a girl in social study rub her chest in my face while I was sitting up against a wall and couldn't move away. I tried to push her off me, which of course made her laughing friends tell the teacher I grouped her. I hate that girl, and no one's figured out why, even though there was a classroom full of people who saw it. I'm not saying no one figured out that she was assaulting me, everyone just seemed to forget about it, as if this wasn't a big deal. Tired and stranded at Denver Airport as an 18-year-old, trying to fly home from college. The airport was nearly completely empty and it was in the middle of the night. I was exhausted and fell asleep on a bench only to wake up to an airport janitor with his hand in my pants. I immediately sat up and pushed him away. He was smiling and saying something in an Eastern European accent. I left the area and went to the other side of the terminal. But I was so tired I fell asleep again and again woke up to this same creep groping me. This was in the 1980s, before ubiquitous cameras, and there were no cops around. Not that I would have been able to tell. I was embarrassed and traumatized. I can still see his creepy smile and I was so angry and afraid. Okay. Haven't shared this story before. I had a friend who seemed cool. We went to a party. I went with my girlfriend at the time and she came along. We were talking, both got drunk. My girlfriend was over talking to a couple of her friends. This girl started touching me. I shrugged it off at the time. And then she went in for a kiss. I backed away and she tried grabbing my private parts. Eventually, I went outside and that girl told my girlfriend that I was touching her, and then my girlfriend got pissed and confronted me about it. Long story short, we dated for a few more months. She believed in me. I cut ties with the other girl. A girl from my uni course got her significantly larger friend to come up to me in a club and physically force us together. I tried saying no and that I didn't want to numerous times, but she ended up kissing me and biting me. I managed to push her off and get out of there, but I really struggle to be around her now. No one else treats it very seriously either. I was in a toxic relationship that I couldn't get out of. She stalked me, told everyone I was raping and beating her, said I was the worst thing to walk this earth, etc. All the while she was forcing herself onto me and beating me. Now she was 90 pounds soaking wet, so it didn't really hurt physically, but emotionally and mentally it wrecked me. I called the police on her 3 times during our stay at uni. The 3rd time the police came to me and said if I didn't stop calling them I would be arrested. They didn't understand what she was capable of and how good of a liar she was. I begged them to look at the cameras and see how I was trying to avoid her and how she kept walking in front of me and yelling at me in front of everyone. She would put herself in the doorway so I couldn't close it. Begging her to leave or threatening to call the police didn't work at all. I would have to push her out of the doorway and slam it shut, praying she didn't get her fingers back in the doorway. She would claim abuse and it was a fave of hers to use against me. The police eventually believed me and said I needed to go to Title IX office. After 3 meetings they said there was nothing they could do and it was meant for women who had been attacked or raped by men. so they weren't equipped and didn't understand the situation. She graduated but still had a lease on our dorm, so she would park next to me and throw things in my window if I left them cracked. She went on to grad school and has a good job and a new victim. I failed college and I'm struggling to get out of bed every day. I can feel my mental faculties deteriorating. I'm on a constant negative feedback loop from all the gaslighting, manipulation, and abuse. I have no intention of suicide, but I feel like my body is dying. The US needs to wake up and understand straight white men are not the enemy. We are people too. We have feelings. We have needs. And despite what your feminism class might tell you, we are not born with as much, if any, privilege as you might think. Stop being manipulated into thinking men are evil. It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy because normal guys like me feel alienated and attacked just for being born the way we were, as if we had a choice, and eventually become extremists and falling into the trap ourselves. I thought minorities wanted equality, not revenge. Worked behind a bar. One woman in particular was always inappropriate, which grew louder the more she came in and the more she drank. Weirdly, it was in front of her husband and daughter, also drunk. She was 50 plus, daughter was 16 to 18. Escalated to physical grabbing, groping, and at one point yanking my tie and pulling me toward her. Luckily the bar taps were too tall and the bar was too wide for her to get close enough to do anything. Also groped in a supermarket once, didn't even see who did it. I don't think I'm even attractive. It was not terribly serious but was uncomfortable. When I was 19, my boss, a woman in her 40s, was going through a pretty nasty divorce which had its roots in the fact that her husband had been having an affair with a much younger woman. On several occasions when she and I were the only people left in the office at the end of the day, she mentioned that she'd love to have sex with some young college guy because it would help her get over the trauma of her husband's cheating. It seemed pretty apparent that she was asking me if I wanted to go bang. It never seemed like a terribly serious issue though, because that was never coupled with any kind of comments about my job security. My interpretation was that she literally just wanted to have some hot sex with a young stud and I was the only young guy she knew. I always just kind of ignored the comments or made jokes about it and then got out of the office as quick as I could. The more serious thing was that I once got passed out drunk at a party. There was a girl at the party who had a crush on me, but I was in no way interested in her. I woke up in the middle of the night to her giving me a hand job. Was at an outdoor concert when a middle-aged woman backed up into me and started dancing and rubbing her butt on my crotch. I backed up, and she backed up into me over and over before I told her to stop. I turned to my friend and started talking to him when she basically put me in a headlock and started trying to make out with me. I struggled to get free while my friends laughed and took pictures and videos. Those pictures and videos then got sent around our friend group and I got made fun of for making out with an old fat woman. I used to work in a grocery store. One of the cashiers was openly into me. Whenever I had to go through her line, she would refuse to ring me up unless I'd agree to go on a date with her. Lots of customers and other staff laughing and egging her on. It's a weird type of powerlessness, because of the switched genders and how everyone else was reacting. Confusingly humiliating. I was a manager at the time, and had to have a conversation with her manager about what was happening. It stopped soon after. 16 years old, was in my first serious relationship. She was emotionally unstable, manipulative, won't go into details, but we had an argument and I left her in my bedroom. When I came back, she had used my razor to cut her wrists and wipe blood on my bed, saying if I didn't have sex with her right then and there then I didn't love her and she had no reason to live anymore. She's healthy and happy now, and I have forgiven her for everything. We were young and she was sick. But unfortunately forgiveness doesn't cure wounds, and it's ruined my sex drive, to the point where it's completely non-existent almost. Which causes issues. Namely, I want to have a normal healthy sex drive for a 22-year-old man, desperately, but can't seem to get excited anymore. Makes me feel inadequate as a male, so I lift weights instead. It's all a healing process. Had to go on a one-night Boy Scout camping trip when I was about 12. None of my friends were able to come, so I didn't have a tent mate, so they stuck me with this older guy. He was around 19 years old but he was slow, so they let him stay in the Scouts and I didn't really know him. About an hour after lights out I wake up to him spooning me with an erection and wandering hands. I kinda just froze hoping he would stop, but after a minute or so I pushed him away and bolted out of the tent. I ended up just pacing around outside the tent for hours till the sun came up. I really wish that hadn't been my first sexual experience. I left the Boy Scouts a few months later. Bartending, it happens. All sorts of stories, but it comes with the territory. To an extent. I put a stop to it pretty quickly when it crosses a line and bring in security if it doesn't stop, and have the offenders escorted out of the bar. Worst instance was at a private event where both of the hosts cornered me in the basement laundry room and tried to take off my clothes. They were grabbing my crotch the whole time and trying to pull out my junk. So, knowing they were both pretty drunk and I can decisively overpower either of them, I de-escalated the situation and defended myself. One of the hosts ended up in the laundry tub, his fat butt was stuck in there after I tossed him, and the other I locked into a storage room and barricaded the door with a tool car and shelving. I didn't get paid, but they also didn't have a bartender for the last 3 hours of their party. There was this awful kid in high school, but my friend and I didn't know how bad he was at the time. My friend, his girlfriend and I were hanging out after school, and the kid asked if he could hang with us too, so we said, why not? We played War over at my friend's house and I laid down on the couch while my friend was in the bathroom. I closed my eyes, not sleeping, just chilling. This kid took out his penis and thumped it on my forehead. My friend's girl and I yelled at him. Never hung out with him again. It came out later that he had raped a girl the summer before this happened as well. Mine's a really long story. I had a stalker for 5 years, who made me jumpy. And I'm not an easily intimidated guy. I was in an open relationship, my girlfriend was showing a friend of hers my nudes, wasn't uncommon of her to do. Gay friend of hers sees and makes a comment asking for my number. She thought it would be funny and gave it to him. He texted me and I just told him, hey man, I'm flattered, but I don't go that way, and assumed that would be the end of it. He spent the next 5 years texting and calling me every day, sending me nudes, offering me $700 to just let him suck it, and would show up to my classes, my place of work, even my mom's house in another city. To try and find me, he used his security clearance as he was in military. Every time I got a new phone number he would have it within a week. Every time I moved he'd show up at my new apartment to welcome me. He was also 6 feet 8 inches and jacked to the gills, very intimidating guy to have knocking on your door at 2 a.m. because you said you were going out of town this weekend. I didn't know what to do. I didn't think anyone would take me seriously, as I didn't feel I was nearly attractive enough to warrant a stalker. It wasn't until I started dating someone seriously and told him I was going to get the cops involved that he stopped. I was raised entirely by women and was already pretty sympathetic, but that experience really opened my eyes to what some women go through. I was working as a CNA, certified nursing assistant, in a medically approved daycare for children 2 weeks to 12 years old. These kids had severe physical and mental disabilities. I worked alongside 15 females, all nurses, in what should have been the most professional and safe work environment. I quickly learned that some women can be just as horny and disgusting as guys can be. Walking into work each day, I had walked by every nurse station and would get catcalled every day. Every day. At first it was awesome. I mean, what guy doesn't fantasize about a group of women all over him? But it quickly grew not only irritating, but grew more and more offensive and over the top. It started off with, ooh yeah, here he comes. Let's see what he's wearing today. Or, he's so cute I just want to pinch that butt. I genuinely thought it was funny at first until one day as I walked in, one particularly gruff nurse said, I want to see that penis. For whatever reason, I was seriously offended deep down and told them all as such. It stopped after that, but what the hell? Told me her gag reflex was as absent as her daddy issues. I declined that advance immediately. Would then call me husband until I informed her that 2 specific forms of my name were acceptable, as in A or B. She didn't understand, thinking I was telling her that one was better than the other, as in call me A, not B. Finally understood after I repeated myself firmly. I almost took the problem to management, but didn't want her punished, just to get the hint. She was terminated for poor performance and incompetence shortly thereafter. Women around me know that I don't like harassment from either gender, and I'd never put a woman in that situation. To have it done to me was infuriating. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more videos like this. And please share your own opinion in the comments below. Why do you think it is that almost no one speaks about men being harassed? Let us know.